How, how, how is music organized? How is music organized? Now, if you want to understand how music is organized, it's pretty simple, yeah. But I've got to do this video thing and pretend to make it a little bit more complicated than it is. No, no, just kidding. Um, you have to understand the very, very basic concept of it. And I went on at length about these 12 notes just so that if anybody was a total beginner into the guitar, he'd understand that there were only these 12 notes. Many of you are advanced musicians and you know how to play the guitar, so this no big deal. But let's just go into the basics because the basics are very important. Okay. Now, these 12 notes could be then organized in a manner that makes the study of these 12 notes easy. Now, remember, the purpose of organization, a proper organization, is to make the study of things easy. If organizing something made it complicated, then it's not really organized. That's called disorganization. So here we go. There are different kinds of things that people play on the guitar: chords, melodies, and progressions, and stuff like that. And most guitarists, indeed, musicians who play any other instrument, will spend their whole lives, trying to master these things. But the fundamental thing is to understand that these 12 notes by themselves are not very musical. So people begin to look for a better way to organize these 12 notes and then to be able to explain the organization within this better way. And what has been done is to use a different system rather than play every single note. What if we just played some of these notes and we made the interval between these notes not equal? So it doesn't seem like a scientific geometric formula. It's not just like, angles and curves and, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. Let's put a little bit of a pattern into it. And here is the fundamental pattern that comes out in the organization of music. Play a note, and then you don't play the next fret that is there. You play one more fret. So in other words, you are now 2 frets away from the original note. 2 frets away, another 2 frets away, and then now only 1 fret away. And then now 2 frets away, 2 frets away, 2 frets away, and now only 1 fret away. So basically, sometimes we were 2 frets away, sometimes we were like 1 fret away, and what we ended up with this was this. It sounds, there are less notes involved in that all the 12 notes, but it sounds more musical than, yeah. So now this structure of music, which on the guitar looks like, playing a note, then you're playing one that is 2 frets away, then the next one being another 2 frets away, and then going 1 fret away, and then 2 frets away, and 2 frets away, and 2 frets away, and finally again to 1 fret away. This is the major scale. That's it. That's probably all of the music theory you'll need to sort of like memorize how to find the major scale. And on the guitar, it's easy. I say you just play a note and then just go 2 frets away, two frets away, then only one fret away, then two frets away, then two frets away, and then two frets away, and then one fret more. So it's like, wherever you start, you know, play, then two, two, one, two, 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 one. That's how I remembered the major scale thing. Go somewhere and go two away, and then two, and then one, and then two, 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 one. That's it, the major scale. Wherever you are on the guitar and wherever you start, if I started here, for example, hang on, it's a bit of, woo, this is like essentially the same note of an octave or two lower, but let's start somewhere totally different. Let's say, okay, let's start here. Forget what this note is called. Don't even bother. But if I from here, I went now two frets away, one fret away, two, 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 and one. This would have become. This is the major scale of whatever this note was. If you use this note as a center point, that was the major scale. Now, I mentioned that a guitarist has also got to talk to a piano player, and you might want to talk to the saxophone player, somebody who plays a different instrument. And if you tell the piano guy, okay, just go two frets away, and he'll look at you like, you. God, I mean, there probably have been fights that were started in orchestras when the guitarist started telling people about frets, yeah? And the guy who plays that trombone thing, what are you on, man, So, musically, there had to be language that was being used that everybody could sort of like understand, and that was not like sort of like politically weighted towards a guitarist or weighted towards a keyboardist. So this process of playing a note and then moving two frets away in music, in the way music is organized, it's called a whole step. If you only move one fret away, it's called a half step. It's like, you're somewhere, okay, and you want to take a movement here. Now, if you move the whole body here, this is like one distance away. But if you only moved a little bit, then you're only half of that distance away. So basically, two frets on the guitar is equivalent to what everybody else would call a whole step. So whenever somebody says, play a note and then play a whole step away from it, or higher than it, then what they mean is forget the next one, do that next one. So that same playing a note and then going two, two, one is just like saying a note and then going a full step and a full step and then a half step ahead. And then if you want to continue with your major scale, another full step, another full step, another full step, and a half step, and you have a major scale. And that's it. That's it. And the surprising thing is like, most guitarists will resist learning what the major scale is because I can play so many songs. I can play so many things with just one chord. And hey man, I even know how to play a second chord. And I can do even more things when I learn how to play that third chord. So what's this guy talking about? Aha. Why talk about the major scale when you can just learn how to play some chords and where to place your fingers? The reason for this is this major scale is the very center, the very absolute center of the entire solar system of the Western music world. Now, solar system, here we go. Okay. Now, take the planets, the stars, the moon, the sun. Yeah, on a dark night, you go out and you look at the stars. It's all wonderful, wonderful, and you look at the moon. It's wonderful. During the day, you see the setting sun. That's beautiful. I live in Malaysia. In the afternoon, you don't look at the sun. It's too hot. It'll burn your eyes. Yeah, but well, it's nice to have the sun, but it's not wonderful to look at that time. But it's still there. And early man, here we go, early man, and probably even women too. Early mankind was always intrigued by the universe. Yeah, I mean, look at the stars and the moon, and people were thinking, if only you could throw a rock hard enough, or far enough, and high enough, you could hit the moon. And the sun. People wanted to travel to the sun. Of course, they know it's hot and it's probably very, very hot there. But hey, why not? Let's travel at night, yeah? Sun's not hot at night. It's not even there. Or go to the moon, and for hundreds or maybe even thousands of years, the greatest minds on earth, philosophers, so-called scientists, and astrologers used to think that, the entire universe or whatever we saw was all organized around our earth. And so they were trying to understand the universe, but they really, really did not get very far. They didn't have a proper understanding of the situation, you see, because they were thinking that everything revolved around the earth, and then the earth was like the centerpiece of it all. And it was only when people began to realize that the earth is revolving around the sun, and like, the moon may go around the earth, but the earth is going around the sun, and other planets are also going around the sun, that we begin to realize that the sun was the central thing, you know. And now we begin to realize that, all these other stars, they are all different suns as well. And so there must be planets revolving around those suns as well. And then we have galaxies made up of what, billions or billions of suns, basically millions and billions of systems running. And it's mind boggling. It's almost as confusing as music theory. But no, people begin to understand this. They study the sun, the stars, the moon. They look at charts. They learn how to chart their way across oceans by looking at the stars. But they won't learn the simple major scale, you know. the major scale is the thing that explains our little musical universe. It's organized in such a way that the major scale is a reference point for everything that happens. Now, let me give you some examples, yeah, because when we get too involved in the theory of stuff, people tend to get bored. So now you have, for example, I'm going to start with this note here, which is on the fifth string of a guitar that is tuned to a standard international tuning system. You see, even to tune the guitar, you can't just randomly tune it however you want it. You could, but there is a system. So according to this system, this note on the third fret of the fifth string of the guitar, you don't have to worry what it's called, yeah? But it just happens to be a C. Now, if I were to start playing this major scale on C, can you remember what it was? If you're going to be a straight guitarist who's not going to bother to talk music with any piano player or any other instrument player, then go for it. 2 frets, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets, 2 frets, 2 frets, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. Just remember that mantra and start on C and you go 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. and you got your octave kind of a thing. But if you want to be a nice guy, a man of the world, man who belongs and is friendly to other musicians, then you'll just think of this note and the next one is a one step away, one step away, half step away, one step away, one step away, one step away, and another half step away. And you then need to understand that, if you were going to move things just like this all the time, why are there other strings on the guitar? You can do it all by just sliding things up and down, can't you? Mm, in a way. But if you're only sliding things up and down on that one string, all you can do is use that one string. And you got all these other strings on the guitar, you see. Somebody worked out a way of organizing this instrument so you could put six strings. Each string is of a different thickness, and they are tuned in such a way that they give different notes when you play them out, and you have low kind of notes and you have high kind of notes. So instead of moving, for example, like this, you could, hey, same tune but less moving around, yeah? Now, same major scale. Starting point, this is one step away. This is also one step away because this string is tuned in such a way that after the fifth fret, the string sound repeats. So basically you have this note here, and the next string has got that note, see? So rather than continuing up here, you can just continue up here. And the system begins to repeat for the next string. Then the system is a little bit changed just for technical purposes for the next string. But essentially the concept is you don't have to move all the way up and down. You can get things done just by moving and switching strings. So it makes things very simple. But the major scale is still the major scale. Now here we begin to show you. No, it's just me. Okay, here I begin to show you how music is organized by using the major scale as a reference point. I could either make that into a different kind of lesson, but I'll just quickly show you this. Now, remember I said there were 12 notes in that, that whole octave, 12 notes, yeah. And then the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The eighth will be an octave higher than the first note. So essentially, there are 7 different notes in the major scale. And then we come to the 8th note, which is just like the first note, but an octave higher. So, if you could work out and find the major scale for any one of these notes, the starting point, that will be the key in which it is. It's called a key. So if I'm playing the major scale in this note, which is a C, this is the major scale in the key of C. Now, if I were to play a major scale in this key, and this note happens to be a D, then this is the major scale in the key of D. It's not important for you to work out how to play the major scale in every key. Nope. Seriously, of course, I know every music school and every instructor tells you should learn how to play, all the scales in all the keys. Yes, in a way, but the most important thing is for you to understand what the major scale is first. once you understand, you just need to apply the same logic to whatever major scale you are playing, but there's just one logic, and that logic is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, for the old 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1. Yeah, but come on, let's just learn whole steps. Now, if I play the major scale in this key, which is this is a C note, I start in C, and I play these seven notes. The eighth one will be the octave up. Things now become very interesting if I can remember that there were seven different notes, and the eighth one was just an octave higher. And this is why the whole of music organization revolves around not just playing single notes. I could do that, or I could just play some of these notes. For example, in the first note, the second note, the third note, fourth note, and the fifth note, sixth note, seventh note, and the octave. Let's call it the eighth note, but nobody calls it the eighth note, it's the octave up, right? If I didn't play all these notes, but I only played first note, the third note, and the fifth note, which will be the first, omit the second, play the third, omit the fourth, play the fifth, I'll be left with hey, that's not too bad. That actually sounds nice. Now we begin cooking. Because the way music then became organized was that people could study the music, and they could organize, and they could talk to each other, and they could explain to each other, hey, if you do this, it'll sound nice. And if you do that, it'll sound not so nice. If you do this, it'll sound very weak. If you do that, it'll sound very strong. So people say, oh, that's quite cool. So that's when people started playing melodies. And instead of just hitting notes at random and hoping they would sound right, people would actually say, okay, I'm just going to play, I'm going to play a 1-2-3, a 1-2-3, and some guy says, why don't you put a 5 into that? It will still sound nice. And they realize that, bloody hell, if you play, no matter in what sequence you played, what note, as long as it was one of these, seven different notes, or hit that octave up there, it will still sound nice, So call out a number, let's say 1, 3. I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing, and then you can have a 1, 5. I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing. But what happens if you just hit you got a 6 there? I'm playing, I'm playing, I'm playing, or 1, 3, and a 6. I'm playing now, I'm playing now. It all sounds nice. I'm playing now, and I'll play again. I'm playing now again. Hey, they all sound nice. So if you hit any one of these notes, it will sound okay. But if you went in and you hit a weird note, and then those other notes might not sound quite nice in that same context. So you begin to organize. You begin to organize your notes into things that are nice, and you learn how to use them. That's the advantage of having an organized music knowledge. So the major scale played by itself, it's lovely. And then people said, okay, but do I need to just play one note at a time? What about if I play two notes? You got so many strings on the guitar, why can't you play more than one note, at a time? You got things there, and said that, you mean like that? Or like that? Or like that? Yeah, like that. Not just play one single note, but put in a whole bunch of notes together. Okay, no worries. So Let's call out 1,000 musicians, give them guitars, tune them up for them, and guys find out what sounds nice to get when played together. Because obviously you can't just hit something at random and just have it sounding nice. There has to be some structure. But what use is the structure if you don't understand it or if you don't know how to use it? Yeah. So they use a major scale as a reference point, and they found that if you played just the first note and the fifth note together, they seem to work quite all right. In fact, they seem to work so nice. They seem to work so nice that people begin to just start playing and start singing using chords that only had two notes. Two notes, lovely. And the beauty of the guitar is that because they are lower strings and they are higher strings, this note mixed with this note, which is actually just the fifth of the first note, it so happens that this note, okay. Those of you who are, fantastic guitarists, you're telling me, Raggy, name the note. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is it sounds nice and it's the fifth note of this first note, yeah. At this stage. And it so happens there is a note below this which is just an octave lower than than this note. There's another string here, the way the guitar is made. So why not use these two notes and then add this lower note, which is actually just a lower version of this same note. And now I have three notes being played. Sounds fuller. I'm hitting three strings, but actually there are only two real notes involved here. This note, which is whatever it is, this note, which is the fifth or whatever that was, and this note, which is just a repetition of this note, but it's a lower version of it, what we call an octave lower. So instead of playing this, I want to put a little bit more weight to whatever I'm playing. And so I'll add that other guy. It sounds nice. And what did we do? We just used the 1 and the 5. And some guy says, all right, but can you use any other things? Can we use more? Rather than two notes, and some guy comes up with the thing about how about we just use the 1, 3, and the 5. They will sound nice. 1, 3, and the 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, and the 5. And hang on, hey, bro, the 3 and the 5, they are on that same string. So I could either play this or this on the guitar, but I can't play both of these notes. I can do the 1, no worries, it's on a different string. But the 3 and the 5 are on different strings. And then I just hang on. Your guitar has more than 2 strings. Let's look for a similar sounding note somewhere else. So now you got 1, 3, and hey, Eureka! This string, even if I don't press it, it sounds exactly like this note. So 1, 3, instead of playing this 5 here, I could play this 1, 3, 5. And now I've got three different notes. I've got a 1, I've got a 3, and I've got a 5. This is interesting. So I could, but if I strike a bit too much further ahead, it's beginning to sound a little bit odd. So what can I do? Guys and folks, organize yourself a little bit better. And what you can do is you can use your other fingers to play this. Now this, my friends, is a C chord on the guitar. You could have played it just with these three notes, using these three strings. And this note is the 1, the 3, the 5. Over here, if you press this, yes, it's another one of those ones. You got another one. And this note, this open string here, it's like this. So basically, this is sounding full, but it's actually only got three notes inside it. You know, it's got a low C, it's got a higher C, it's got an E, it's got a higher E, you know, it's got a G in it, and it's a C chord. So here we go. Music fundamentals. Whenever you take a major scale, if you play the 1, the 3, and the 5, that is a major chord of whatever the root was, whatever the scale was in. So if you take a D note, this is a D note, and you play 1, 3, 5, these three notes, if you could find a way on the guitar to play them together without clashing your fingers on the same string, would be the D major chord. That's it. So we have a C chord, and we have a D chord, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, if you know your major scale, you can work your way into playing chords. Easily you can work out the major chord of in any key. And now what about other chords? Good news, folks, they are all based on the major scale and how you manipulate them. How you manipulate them. But the essential beginning of everything, as far as the Western music world is concerned, yeah, it's a major scale. I say the Western music world because different cultures have evolved music differently, and there are some cultures, exotic Eastern cultures, that don't divide an octave into 12 notes. Oh, yes, these exotic people, some of them might divide an octave into 16 or 18 notes, which throws a lot of this music theory into confusion. But let's keep things sensible. We are studying music the way the Western world has organized it from the time of, Latin music to wherever. And it is all organized around these 12 notes in an octave, and all centered around an understanding of the notes as they are related to the major scale. Now, I say as they are related to the major scale. I'll come up to a further understanding of this thing in another lesson. But let me just end this thing by sort of like talking about the coconut tree. Coconuts, yeah, I live in Asia, and we have coconut trees in a lot of places along beaches. They are beautiful to look at, and the coconut fruit is lovely. And if you ask most people what is the useful part of the coconut tree, and everybody talks about the coconut. And if you ask them, what's the good part of the coconut, some people will say it's the coconut milk that they drink, and some people may say, hey, there's a lot of meat in the coconut, and that part of it can be eaten. So people think of the coconut, as something that can be eaten, or you can drink the milk inside. And they would see that as the value of the coconut tree, to produce coconuts. Now you talk to a guy who lives in a fishing village, and he'll say, bloody hell, we never drink the water If you crack open a coconut, what comes out is the water. They say, we never drink that water. And you say, what? Said, yeah, 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 we might feed some of it to our cows and stuff like that, but we don't drink it because it makes our knees weak. So we eat. So what do you use the coconut for? Oh, they use the husk that people will think is thrown away. They use the husk of the coconut for making ropes. They use the hard shell of the coconut for making little bowls and stuff like that. Uh, the stem of the coconut tree can be used, cut into various lengths, and can be used for making small bridges and stuff like that. The leaves of the coconut tree can be the huge big fronds can be used for making roofing for huts. What is called atap roofing. And if you strip a leaf and you just go for the central stem of it can be bunched together. You get hundreds of these stems, you bunch them together, and they make beautiful, lovely brooms for sweeping the floor of dust. What does all of this have to do with with music and the guitar? You know, what I'm trying to say is, if you understand something, just something simple and something basic, if you understand it, then you could use a lot of the things that people throw away and use them in wonderful ways to do things that you could not have done otherwise. So, the major scale derived from something, these 12 notes, which really didn't sound too musical. We can organize them into the major scale. Sounds not too bad by itself. So we are now using just 7 of these 12 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We use 1, 3, and 5 to make a major chord. What about the note between the 1 and the 3? What about the 2? And what about the other note before the 2 even? You got 1, and you got another note, and then you got a 2. What about this in between note? All of these in between things can be used once you start understanding them. And once you start understanding them, then you discover the full blooming beauty of the coconut. No, sorry, I meant the coconut tree. Oops, sorry, I meant music. So you have to start with understanding the very, very, very basic, which is the major scale. And then you can develop your understanding of any musical instrument from there. It's from this major scale that you will begin to understand chords, discover more scales, discover everything that's got to do with like progressions, discover various harmonies that can be put into songs. And for those of you who aspire to become, guitarists who play a lot of solos and stuff like that, the major scale is the basis upon which you can then understand all other scales, exotic modes and stuff. None of them are difficult. None of them are difficult. It's just that people don't center their understanding on the actual center. It's all the solar system and the universe is very confusing when you don't realize that the sun is the center. Then you work out your understanding from there. It's same with music. You will not move anywhere in understanding chords, chord progressions until you learn the actual central language of it. You have to understand what is the major scale. You have to understand which is the first note, which is the second note, which is the third. When somebody says the third note or the fourth note in the major scale, you have to understand what they mean. Because if you don't understand what they mean, you cannot move. You cannot move from your position of non-understanding, so to speak. So on that happy note, on that happy note, I'll see you again, and the next time we'll walk into the world of rock and roll and blues and chords and stuff like that. But you would already understand everything that I'm saying because you know the fundamental concept behind music. The major scale. The major scale. Cheers, guys.